Quick heads up, this story gets graphic and disturbing. Viewer discretion advised.
They called him Home Run Joel, a 30-year-old ray of sunshine who was adored by his whole community for his incredible hugs and positivity, and then he was found dead in a rocking chair. His 87-year-old grandmother, a former nurse, calmly confessed to police that she did it. She said it was a mercy killing because she herself only had 5 months to live and she didn't want him to suffer alone. But, this whole mercy story just shattered against one simple fact that police learned later. Joel's mother and sister were already preparing to take him home. And you definitely need to watch this video to the end, because only then will the shocking answer be revealed. What was really behind this mercy and why police called it a premeditated act. Hello everyone, this is Dwight and Abby. We won't drag this out. Just write what city are you from, what time is it, where you are, and what's the weather like, and what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen at your grandparents' house.
Joel David Parks Jr. was born on February 17, 1989 in Bradenton, Florida. His parents were Joel Parks Sr. and Tasha Fretz. Joel also had a sister, Yvonne, who he affectionately called Bonnie. And she and all his friends and family described him as, this ray of sunshine, positive, energetic, always smiling, a hugger in the family. They just called him Bubby. But the family ideal, if it ever existed, didn't last long. When Joel was only 4 years old, his parents divorced. Sometime later, his father, Joel Sr., passed away. His mother, Tasha, tried to manage the kids on her own, but apparently it wasn't working out. Eventually, she remarried a man named James Fretz and custody of the children. Well, custody went to their grandmother, 61-year-old Lillian Parks. And from that moment on, Lillian took over the complete upbringing of Joel and his sister. She literally dedicated all her time and energy to them. And to be fair, she had no criminal history whatsoever. What's more, public records confirm she once worked as a licensed practical nurse in the state of Tennessee from 1977 to 1983. This, of course, was very helpful in caregiving. Because Joel lived with cognitive disabilities, his exact diagnosis is kind of a gray area. Some reports say autism. Others suggest the cause might have been a traumatic brain injury from some childhood car accident, but whatever the cause, the result was the same. Joel remained physically completely healthy, but due to developmental delays, he needed support, lifelong support. Despite these challenges, Joel was an incredibly bright personality. He attended the Easter Seals Day program in Southwest Florida, which in short is a large network of organizations that helps people with disabilities, veterans, and seniors live the most fulfilling and independent lives possible. And there, at Easter Seals, Joel was just adored. The center's CEO, Tom Waters, said that Joel literally radiated warmth. He would greet everyone with a loud, "Hey, buddy." As soon as he saw them, Waters called him one of the happiest guys you could ever meet, and also one of the tightest huggers. It's like when he came up and hugged you, you felt hugged. For real. And this wasn't an isolated case. A man named Danny Miller wrote on Facebook that Joel volunteered at the Manatee Players, which is a local performing arts organization, and he never left there without hugging every single staff member. Besides theater, Joel loved baseball. He played in the Miracle League. That's a special league, and his teammates gave him the nickname Home Run Joel. Coaches said he was constantly progressing, constantly improving as a player, and most importantly, he was proud of it himself. Jordan Jones, the board chair for the Miracle League, said that on the field, Joel was probably the happiest person in the world, always smiling, and everyone saw this progress in sports. And it seems he was well aware of it too. So let's just establish this. Joel was an active member of the community. He was loved, and despite all his diagnoses, he was absolutely thriving in his adult life. When Joel became an adult, state funding allowed him to move. He settled into a special group home designed for adults with disabilities. It's a place where there's structure, there's help with daily tasks, but at the same time, there's a degree of independence. Though supervision is, of course, also provided, Joel could handle some tasks himself, even worked part-time, and took care of his basic needs, but he still needed daily support. His grandmother, Lillian, was in her 70s by that time, and let's be honest, she physically couldn't care for him 24/7 anymore due to her own health problems. So they worked out this arrangement. During the week, Joel lived in the group home, and he spent the weekends with Lillian. His mother, sister, and stepfather were living in Ohio by that point. And here's an important point. According to Lillian herself, Joel did not like living in that group home. She claimed he often ran away from there and still depended on her daily, especially for taking his medication. In September 2019, the situation got complicated. Lillian was scheduled to have hernia surgery, and after that, she was expected to have a long recovery in a nursing home, meaning she clearly understood that she couldn't take care of Joel during this period at all, so she asked her granddaughter, Yvonne, to come from Ohio to Bradenton, Florida to help.
Yvonne arrived at the apartment in Carlton Arms sometime in mid-September, and her grandmother immediately gave her a strange task. She told Yvonne to remove almost everything from the apartment, take out most of the belongings, even the sofa, and clean the car, leaving only the bedroom furniture. That already sounds weird, right? That evening, Yvonne spent a little time with her grandmother and Joel, and then went about her business with friends. As she was leaving, Joel asked if he'd see her later, and they exchanged "I love yous," just a normal family scene. Joel often spent weekends helping out at a local convenience store nearby, and on the morning of September 21st, he was seen there. He was in a great mood. Then he returned to his grandmother's apartment. That night, he was supposed to be on the field, supposed to be playing baseball. That was his plan, but his grandmother, as it turned out, had very different plans for him. Yvonne spent that day with her boyfriend and friends and returned to Lillian's apartment in the evening. The scene she saw was completely mundane. Joel was sleeping in the rocking chair, the TV was on, and her grandmother was resting in bed nearby. Nothing, absolutely nothing suspicious. Yvonne just went to bed. The next morning, around 8 a.m., she woke up and saw the same scene. Joel was still sitting in the chair, covered with a blanket. She even accidentally bumped the chair, but just figured he was sleeping soundly. But time was passing, hours went by, and Joel didn't move. And at this point, Yvonne started to get nervous. She asked Lillian what was going on, but her grandmother calmly replied, "Well, he just stayed up late watching movies." But sometime around noon that day, Yvonne couldn't take it anymore and went to check on him again. Joel wasn't moving. When she looked closer, she realized he wasn't breathing. She ran to Lillian in a panic, and her grandmother said something cold. "Yeah, that's because he's not breathing." Yvonne was in absolute shock. She started demanding an explanation. And then Lillian said, "Oh, I'll kill us both. We'll go together." At that moment, Yvonne thought she saw some kind of pill in her grandmother's mouth, and realizing something horrible and irreversible was happening, she ran out and immediately called the police. When the ambulance pulled up to the house, the neighbors, of course, thought it was for Lillian, given her advanced age. They were stunned when they learned the medics were actually there for Joel. The police, who arrived next, found the same grim scene. Joel sitting in the rocking chair, completely lifeless, and Lillian calmly lying in bed next to him. 30-year-old Joel was pronounced dead at the scene. First, the police questioned Yvonne. She just repeated her story, bewildered. She came to help her grandmother clean before her surgery. And then the officers switched to 87-year-old Lillian, and she, without getting out of bed, began her interrogation. Her explanation was calm. She told the officers, well, he needed help his whole life. And he lived in a home, but he was unhappy there. He wanders around outside here, and I have to go find him. She emphasized that she was the one who cared for him. She gave him his medicine every day, and yes, she confessed. She said that around noon the day before, meaning long before Yvonne even got home, she gave Joel an unknown number of pain medications, and then she took a few pills herself. The motive. She told the police that doctors had supposedly told her she had about 5 months to live, and she just didn't want Joel to suffer alone after her death. Her direct quote, "I want him to be with me when I go, so I put him to sleep, and then I'll sleep." And she added, "I wanted him to fall asleep, and now he's asleep." Lillian said she wanted him to be with her in heaven. She even prepared. She wrote farewell letters to family members and left $1,500 in cash to cover cremation costs. For both of them, because of her declining health, she didn't want to spend her last months in a nursing home, and she claimed she just wanted Joel to fall asleep so he could stay with her when she eventually died.
We're here to discuss a case from Sunday afternoon. Around noon, Bradenton police responded to the 5100 block of Riverfront Drive in Bradenton. It is an apartment complex for the report of a deceased individual. Upon arrival, officers found 30-year-old Joel Parks deceased in the residence. Joel's grandmother, 87-year-old Lillian Parks, who is his part-time caretaker, made several concerning remarks, spontaneous remarks to the officers, that she had purposely overdosed him with the intent of taking his life. She was concerned about her medical condition and was worried about who would be caring for him in the event that she passed away. Jillian currently is in protective medical custody until she's released by a doctor. And I would like to note that Joel is a disabled adult, unable to care for himself. Joel resided in a group home throughout the week and then would stay with Jillian on the weekends. Joel's parents, his father is deceased, his mother is estranged, and he was discovered by a sister. So at this point in time, charges are pending. We are working with our partners at the state attorney's office to ensure that Jillian Parks, the proper charges are filed, and that she will be taken into custody when she is released from medical care. Are there any questions?
What did she use to overdose him?
There's a lot of things still pending. It's a very active investigation. At this point, we're waiting on some results, one of those being toxicology results. This is a difficult case for our detectives, a difficult case for our agency. Partly, you feel bad for an individual who feels that the only option is to take another human being's life because you're so worried about their care after you're gone. But on the other hand, this is a process where it was thought out, it was planned, and she took a human life. So we are looking at it from a standpoint of she took a human life, and we need to do everything we can to bring justice to his family and his friends. Ms. Parks, and I'd like to clarify, her name is Lillian, not Jillian. I said Jillian earlier, it's Lillian. Ms. Parks is 87 years old.
She's in jail?
No, she's currently in a secure medical facility. There is no threat to the public until she is released by the doctor. Until then, at that point, we will move forward with charging her. You never know what Ms. Parks or a family member, somebody may have said something, somebody knows something. We always put that out there. There's always more to a case, and if anybody knows anything, of course, we put that offer out. The cash reward is through Crime Stoppers, one of our partners, Manatee County Crime Stoppers. You're eligible, if you call in anonymously, you're able to, and the tip pans out, you're able to be eligible for a cash reward.
And what's next with the investigation?
Next investigation is the continuing with the toxicology reports, the medical examiner investigation, and of course moving forward with the state and any charges that we're moving forward with as soon as she's released from that doctor's care.
How are you guys take off to this?
It was a sister who found Mr. Parks deceased when he went to check on, when she went to check on him. She found him deceased and called us.
Did she describe Parks' behavior at that moment? What was she doing?
That's still part of the investigation. Interviews are still ongoing today. We're still meeting with family members as of today and plan to for the remainder of this week. Currently, we are working with the state attorney, so we are gearing towards second-degree murder in this case. You never know totally what someone is thinking. In this case, I don't know if she's thinking about the well-being of her grandson or if she's thinking about herself. I can't answer that question. What we have to look at is the total circumstances, everything surrounding it, and in this case, we can arrive and say that this is a premeditated act where, again, she took the life of another human being. So we take all the other factors out of it. At the end of the day, she took the life of Joel Parks. All right? Thank you very much.
Well, after statements like that, 87-year-old Lillian, of course, wasn't left in the apartment. She was taken to Manatee Memorial Hospital. This was done under the Baker Act, which is this law in Florida that allows for the involuntary commitment of people who are a danger either to themselves or, as in this case, to others. I mean, she had just confessed to murder and said she wanted to follow him. And while she was at the hospital, investigators searched the apartment, and of course, they found evidence. They found a pill bottle with a prescription in her name. The prescription was written on September 17th for 120 pills, 120, and in the bottle, only 2 were left. The conclusions here were more than obvious. Joel was given a lethal dose, and just so no one had any doubts about her intentions. Police also found those letters addressed to the family. Each one had explanations and instructions about what she had done. This was an absolutely deliberate, cold-blooded plan. And this is where it gets really interesting, her justification. Lillian insisted in her testimony that Joel's relationship with his mother, Tasha, was estranged. Like, nobody needed him but her. But as soon as Tasha herself and her husband, James, found out about this, they immediately denied it. They categorically denied any estrangement. They insisted they were always present in Joel's life. What's more, it turns out they were already prepared to take him in. They were getting ready for Yvonne, who had just arrived, to bring Joel to them in Ohio. And they made it clear, if Yvonne couldn't, Tasha would have gotten in the car herself and come for her son. I mean, this whole story about lonely Joel, it was just a fabrication. And then another detail surfaces. It became clear that Lillian, despite her advanced age, despite all her health problems, never established any official custody arrangements for Joel. She had the full legal right to transfer responsibility to another family member like Tasha, but she chose not to. She just kept all the control in her hands. The granddaughter, Yvonne, later recalled that in retrospect, It all adds up. Her grandmother probably already knew her time was limited when she asked her to come and clean the apartment. It wasn't cleaning, it was liquidation. Yvonne believes Lillian was at a crossroads, weighing two paths. Path 1, have the surgery, go to a nursing home, and just hope that Joel would be safely delivered to his mother in Ohio. Or Path 2, the one she ultimately chose, and no matter what good motives she used to justify it, she chose that one. Yvonne was shocked by this choice. She stated clearly, they had many relatives who both wanted to and were absolutely able to care for Joel. Lillian's claim that there were no other alternatives was just untrue. Moreover, Joel had state funding that would have guaranteed he'd be taken care of even when Lillian was gone. So, in this whole twisted idea of mercy that Lillian invented for herself before taking Joel's life, there isn't a single drop of logic in it. It's not mercy, it's something else entirely.
Out to the front door, he goes, "Bye, see you later." I said, "Yes, baby." I said, "We'll see you later." I said, "I love you." He goes, "I love you too." And that was the last time I'd seen him alive.
Yvonne Parks says she spent the day out with her boyfriend and friends. She got back to her grandmother's apartments late Saturday night, saw Lillian Parks and Joel sleeping with the TV on, and thought nothing of it. But at noon the next day, she found it strange to find Joel still asleep.
I said, "Grams," I said, "it doesn't look like he's breathing." And that's when she said, "Clear as day, because he's not." And I said, "What do you mean he's not? Like, what are you talking about?" She goes, "Oh, I'm doing us both in, we're going together."
Yvonne says Lillian had a plan. She had asked Yvonne to come to Bradenton to clean out the apartment and take Joel back to Ohio with her.
Because she wasn't sure if she was going to commit or if she was going to go through with having the hiatal hernia surgery and go to a nursing home afterwards.
Bradenton police say Lillian told them she intentionally overdosed Joel because she'd be dying soon and there was no one left to take care of him when she was gone.
For her to say he was estranged from his mother is a big lie.
I have never been estranged from my children by choice. I'd have come and gotten Joel. She had planned 2 weeks prior to that she was going to let Bonnie come and take him back to Ohio.
The family says Joel's death was unnecessary and premeditated, and now this voicemail is the only thing they have left of their bubby.
How are you? Goodbye.
She took my brother for no reason and to sit there and say that there was no option, that this was the only way she knew how to take care of him. That's crap. He lit up the room when he walked in the door.
That bright star was 30-year-old Joel Parks. His family called him Bubby.
He goes, "Bonnie, I love you. I'll see you later." I said, "I love you too, Bubby. I'll see you later." And that was the last time I seen him.
The next day, Joel's sister was back at her grandmother's home at the Carlton Arms Apartments in Bradenton, where Joel lived part of the time. Yvonne says that's when she noticed Joel slumped over and not looking right.
And I was like, "Grams, it doesn't look like he's breathing." She said, "Because he's not." With kind of like a little snicker in it. "What do you mean he's not? What do you mean he's not breathing? Like, what are you talking about?" "Oh, I'm doing us both in, we're going together."
87-year-old Lillian Parks told police that she purposefully overdosed and killed her grandson because she would not be able to care for him any longer because of her declining health.
His life was snuffed out for nothing.
Joel's family is devastated. His mother, Tasha, says Lillian tried to keep her out of Joel's life.
For her to sit there and just take it, not just away from me, but his siblings, the world that he touched.
Police say Lillian Parks was taken to a medical facility because of her physical condition. They say when she's released, she'll be charged with second-degree murder. But the family says that's not enough.
It was all premeditated. His life was cut way too short. Nothing like this should have ever happened to him.
Captain Brian Fairs, he described this case as complicated for detectives. And I get what he's saying. On one hand, they see an elderly woman who, it seems, is genuinely worried about her grandson's future. And on the other, they can't and shouldn't ignore the fact that she intentionally took his life. The captain emphasized that their duty is to look at the situation as a whole, and most importantly, to protect Joel's rights. And it doesn't matter how old Lillian was or what disabilities Joel had, and she acted completely alone. And this is where we get to the most terrifying part. Cases where caregivers kill people with disabilities who depend on them. This isn't some exotic rarity. There's no national database, of course. Nobody wants to count this. But research clearly shows than children without them. Maybe that doesn't surprise you, but what will surprise you is the research from the Ruderman Family Foundation. By their estimates, murders of people with disabilities by family members or caregivers happen about once a week. And we all understand the real number is probably much higher. Many cases just aren't reported, or the victim's disability isn't publicized. Just think about it. Every week, at least one person who needs protection dies at the hands of the person who is supposed to love and protect them. And you know what's even worse? When these cases do get to court, the courts often show leniency. The guilty get lighter sentences than other murderers because the jury, you see, recognizes the difficult circumstances. Although any disability rights advocates will tell you that this is complete nonsense and discrimination. And this leniency grows from very rotten roots. History shows how long people with disabilities were just considered inferior in Germany during World War II. About 200,000 people with disabilities were killed between 1940 and 1945, and this wasn't done by some maniacs in alleys. Doctors oversaw these executions. But don't think this is somewhere far away. In the United States, the Citadel of Freedom, there were very similar discriminatory views. The Supreme Court decision of 1927, it upheld forced sterilization. Approximately 65,000 Americans with disabilities were sterilized in 30 states. This was less than 100 years ago, and these disgusting historical views, unfortunately, still influence how society perceives so-called mercy killings. Disability rights advocates are sounding the alarm for a reason. The justice system, built on such prejudices, often either stalls or completely flushes justice for victims with disabilities. Of course, a simple lack of resources also plays a role. Adults with developmental disabilities face a cliff where care options just disappear once they leave the school system. There is no single national support system. Many rely exclusively on family, and most families, let's be honest, just don't have the resources for long-term care. Yes, the movement for people to live in the community, not in closed institutions, is good, but tragedies like Joel's death show what huge gaps exist in available services and oversight. So what about Lillian? After 12 days in the hospital, she was discharged and taken into custody at the Manatee County Jail. She was charged with second-degree murder, but later, her case was reclassified to manslaughter. This decision caused, to put it mildly, disappointment for Joel's family. They rightly argued that this act was planned for weeks. The letters, the cleaning of the apartment. This should have been first-degree murder. But a trial, and never happened, on January 1st, 2020, just over 3 months after Joel's murder. 87-year-old Lillian Parks died in jail. With her death, the case was just closed. Authorities never released Joel's autopsy results. The letters she left were never published. The family gave no more comments, and even an obituary for Lillian didn't appear. Only questions remained. No official details about Joel's last moments. Not a word about what was in those letters. The silence of her relatives probably showed the deep pain her actions caused, and Joel's death became just the final chapter in a case that closed without any verdict.
And while the legal system just closed the folder, the community that surrounded Joel was devastated. The leaders at Easter Seals, where Joel was so loved, along with many others, called this loss extremely painful. They expressed condolences to the family, but also decided to honor Joel's memory. By celebrating the happiness he brought to everyone, CEO Tom Waters said, "The disability community is grieving. A lot of people are grieving. Because everything about this situation is tragic, but we honor him. We honor the life he had and the life he shared with us." Jordan Jones from the Miracle League shared, "I think our whole community was shocked by this. We know he perhaps is in a better place now, but nobody expected this." The celebration of Joel's life took place on Thursday, October 3rd, 2019, in his online obituary. Friends who knew him from Chase Bank remembered his smile and hugs, writing how much they would be missing him. One of the caregivers shared how special it was to know him. Remembering his beaming smile during their last conversation, she called it an honor to care for him and said he would always be remembered. And now, his loved ones are left with only memories. And that same last voicemail for his mother, "I love you." So what are we supposed to do with all this? I assume that many people hearing the story will say, yeah, it's a tragedy, but immediately brush it off like, this happens rarely. It's just one of those senseless acts that nobody could have prevented. And I'm not going to sit here and claim there was some magical way to prevent Joel's murder specifically, but I want to ask something. How many of you, honestly, before today, knew the statistic that every week, one person with a disability is killed by a parent or caregiver? How many of us live completely unaware of something so horrific happening. Week after week, I'm not asking you to feel guilty for not knowing this, but I'm stressing something clearly needs to change here because the result of this silence is another murder every week. A murder that maybe could have been prevented, and the realization that some of these victims just physically cannot protect themselves makes the situation even more disgusting, and we need to do something. I don't have a perfect step-by-step solution to fix this problem, but I know for sure the average person just doesn't notice the frequency of murders of people with disabilities, and the most important thing we can all do is to just open our eyes for a start. Lillian was 87 years old at the time of Joel's murder, and did she have dementia? Was she in her right mind at that age? Well, I think that's obviously possible, but I don't think it excuses it. No, it doesn't excuse it. And one more thing. You know, she's from an older generation, which has different views on what we do with people with disabilities. Yeah, we're not that far removed from institutionalizing people. I have an Aunt Vicky on my dad's side. And I met her one time, and that one time I met her, she was already an elderly woman, and it was at my grandmother's funeral. When she was a kid, she had the measles, and her temperature spiked so fast, it fried her brain, and she had a developmental disability. And at that time, somewhere in the 1950s, etc., you didn't stay at home. You were put in an institution, and Aunt Vicky stayed in an institution until she died. She was in residential care, and I didn't know she existed because I was looking at a family photo and thought, who is this little girl? And they answered, that's Vicky. We don't talk about her. We don't talk about her. And this went on until I was about 25. That was the only time I saw her. So to connect this to Lillian's mentality from previous generations who saw a family member with a disability as a shame to be hidden, to the point that they weren't even talked about. You pretended they didn't exist and quietly put them in a hospital and forgot about them. Dementia or not. And there is no evidence that Lillian had dementia. But dementia or not, for decades, Lillian had the opportunity to legally establish something so that if any problem arose with her, Joel would be protected, and she didn't do it. And she was a nurse. She knew better, yes. And for that, I think she deserves no leniency, no forgiveness. Like, what she did was not only premeditated, she's a person who knows better. She knew the system, she knew the process. She chose not to do it for decades. She got custody when she was 61, I believe. Yes, because it went from her early 60s to her 87 years. So for about 25 to 26 years, she had the opportunity to do this. And I find it hard to believe she had dementia at 61.
So you guys can write in the comments what you want. I have absolutely no sympathy for Lillian. In my opinion, she's a murderer, pure and simple. And she needs to be talked about as such. And I really don't like that there are so many people here, like when the police captain was giving his speech. And he was talking about how he, I'm paraphrasing a bit, sympathizes with this woman who feels she needs to kill her grandson. Because, in her opinion, he can't be taken care of. When it's such a broken structure, if you look at the details, Joel's situation is not like that at all. No, not at all. He had other family. He had state funding. He could work part-time. So, if he says he sympathizes with a grandmother who thinks her loved one can't be taken care of, it's built on a false premise. Like, that's not the reality. It's precisely the inability to talk about these things concretely and factually that will lead to more murders of people with disabilities in a fashion like this. Manslaughter. How dare you? Thank you for watching until the end. This story shows that the most dangerous control is the kind that masks itself as mercy. Write to us honestly. What do you think this really was? Was this truly a mercy killing by an 87-year-old woman who was terrified he would be left alone? Or was this the ultimate act of control from someone who couldn't stand the thought of Joel going to live with his mother? Where is the truth for you? May Joel Parks, our home run Joel, rest in peace. Also, please check out the next videos you see on the screen right now.